Hey Jordan, good to see you, man. How are you?
Me too. I'm good. I'm really good. It's chaotic, but it's good. I'm very grateful to be busy right now because I know a lot of people don't have that are that lucky. You know, they're just kind of twiddling their thumbs. But yeah.
So for people who are not friendly with you like I am, I met Jordan years ago. I want to say it was at AES, wasn't it?
No, I've never been to an AES.
Okay.
Yet.
Well, I know I met you through Matt McGlynn, I think.
Yeah, well, dude, it was like a Twitter brotherhood.
That's what it was.
It was through the home recording show.
Right, right. So I know a lot of voice actors, and some of them are into microphones, but not all of them. And Jordan, you're one of those people who, to me, we can nerd out. We can talk about microphones till the sun goes down. And you're very knowledgeable, and I know you're a good voice actor too. And so I feel like taking this opportunity in this moment when a lot of people are trying to record at home to talk about microphones, I think will help our community as people are sort of, seems to me like a couple of things are happening. Tell me if you think I'm right here. One is people are gearing up in the first place. And two is people have some gear, but they want to upgrade. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's about it. It's like they are in like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I have no equipment. Freak out mode. And then there's other people. I think there's 3 tiers actually.
Okay.
It's that first tier. The next tier is I have a USB mic. I know how to edit some audio but I've only been using it for auditions. I've never done it for any bookings.
Right.
And then there's the third tier, which isn't like the fortunate tier that I'm in, where I already have a high quality setup. I know how to operate it. I've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
That's not the other tier. The tier right below that is there are people who have better equipment than a USB mic. They might have a nice XLR mic. They might even have a booth, but they're used to, they have some workarounds, and they're used to mostly recording in isolation. Meaning they can tweak the audio after and maybe process it and remove some noise. Right? See what I'm getting at? And now, if you want to work on some of these higher paying gigs, if you will, whether it's commercials or even like animation and video games, they're doing it all from home studios. And guess how they do it? They tap right into your studio, raw, live. They can't enhance it. It's however bad your studio sounds. If it's not super high quality, then you could have problems, and that's where I really want to help those people too. Good. So we want to get people like into that tier, but there's this whole moving meter of people who definitely need help right now.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like having a discussion about it in terms of what we like, why we like what we like, and I think comparing notes, you know, because I don't know any two people who like the same exact car or same exact food, and I think the same can be true for microphones to some degree. That you know, we have some preferences, but then there are some sort of overarching general ideas that we have. And I just wanted to start with you personally. When you are going for a microphone, when you're thinking about buying a microphone, adding to your closet, or recommending to someone else for voice acting at home, what do you personally want from a microphone?
Well, okay, as it just pertains to voiceover, right? Now, for me as a voice actor, I'm in a different tier, meaning not like better. I just mean I already have a great collection, right? I have a wide range. So in my position, I'm looking for another flavor. What's something different that I don't already have? But for someone who is looking for maybe just maybe their second microphone, they're upgrading, or even their first microphone, I think the most important elements that come into play, and this will be kind of a recurring theme people will hear throughout this discussion, is I want it to be very long lasting. Like I don't want to have to be buying it like a new phone, right? It's like every 2 years you have to get a new phone, and it's $1,000 phone if you want a good one, right? I want to be able to buy a $500 plus mic and have it last as long as humanly possible. And if you take care of it, it can last like 20 years without, you know, might change the color, but that's a pretty good investment. So that's a really big thing. And the other elements is I want it to have a very quiet noise floor. And what that means is the amount of inherent electronic noise that comes with a microphone when you buy it. It's the s or the f, right? There's just that standard noise that it generates once you start amplifying that signal. And a lot of cheaper mics, as you know, tend to have a louder noise floor. And in voiceover on the pro level, they have a very high standard. So I want it to not have, I want that noise floor to be as quiet as possible. And the final thing is I just want it to not be sensitive to plosives. And plosives are popped P's. I'm hoping I popped it. I'm not wearing headphones, but
No.
did it sound popped?
I mean, you got a stopper on there, right? You got a windscreen.
Yeah. Well, anyways, most people know what I'm talking about. But there are just a few microphones that I've experienced that I've used that are just a lot more, clearly not this one, the Rode NTG3 shotgun mic, but large diaphragm condensers, they tend to be very susceptible to popped P's and plosive, or the technical term is plosive. So those are the main qualities I'm looking for when either upgrading or getting my first ever voiceover microphone for sure.
Well, why don't we talk about your cabinet and the mics you already have then? And, you know, we don't want to take forever. I don't know how wide your cabinet is, but maybe just pick a few favorites and talk about why you like them.
Sure. Yeah, I won't list all of them because frankly, there's just a lot that are, you know, they're ones of the past, and
sure.
I bring them out when I'm maybe recording other talent for demos just to get another flavor. But my main go-to mics are the TLM or the Neumann TLM 103.
Yep.
The Sennheiser 416.
Yep.
And the Roswell Pro Audio Ravo, which is the mic I helped with Matt McGlynn. Where it's made specifically for voiceover.
Yeah.
And then the other mixed one that I throw in there is the CAD E100S.
Okay.
Because even though it's like half the price of those other microphones that I just listed, it's just, I love it. It's got a tighter pickup pattern than most large diaphragm condensers, and it's just a really flat, neutral sounding microphone with a super quiet noise floor. So that's kind of like my main arsenal. I have some others thrown in there. Mara, my wife, who's a phenomenal voice talent herself, we have 2 studios, so our mic locker is shared. So she has a U87 AI, which I get to use sometimes, and she also has I got to get one for myself soon. I'm saving up the Townsend Labs I-22, I think. It's a virtual microphone, but we won't even go there. But essentially, it's one hardware mic, and you can change the sound of the mic to like 100 different flavors of vintage and all these different kinds of mics all on your computer live.
Wow.
So that's what she does. Like literally she's just changing mics, blending mics. She just nerds out, and I'm really jealous and I want one.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Now, I think you were one of the first people I ever heard talk about Lewitt.
Yes. And the reason why I didn't mention Lewitt is because just keeping it real.
Yeah.
My first like biggest high-end upgrade years ago, probably in 2013, 2014, was a Lewitt LCT 640. They don't make that anymore.
Okay.
They make one that is supposed to be similar. It's the Lewitt LCT 640 TS. That's T as in Tom, S as in Sam. And I actually have that model. Long story short, I essentially was able to upgrade to that one.
Nice.
Because the lights on my original one were going out. So it still functioned, but I couldn't see what the hell. It was like, it's like, is the high pass filter on? It sounds like it, you know. There's no indicator because it was a digital control system.
Right.
And in short, I don't use it much. I have it, but it's because it's really bright. It's too bright and if something's too bright on my voice, I don't really have very harsh sibilants, and so it ends up. I've tried it on a few female voices. Unfortunately, it's a little too bright. Great for singing and like pop vocals.
Okay,
but I'm not doing a lot of that right now. It's mostly voiceover. So, but other than that model, all of their other mics that I've tried are really good for the money.
Yeah,
like I did a whole review on their tube and FET mic. It's the LCT 940. It's a way expensive mic, but I did a whole review. It's on my YouTube covering that microphone. I love how that thing sounds. I love how their cheaper mics sound. So yeah.
Yeah, no, they have a mid-range, like, you know, halfway between 500 and 1,000 called Sub-Zero. I think it's their quietest microphone, which I think is a really interesting claim. Have you been able to use that one?
I haven't yet. I should maybe try to get my hands on one for a review, but maybe. Funny story is I got a review unit just to review. I had to send it back. I didn't get any perks or anything of the 940, that expensive one. Yeah. And it took me like a year. Yeah. Now I only had the mic for like 2 months and then I shipped it back, but it took me like over a year to get the video done because it was like my first ever gear review. Like, and I go over the top and I'm a professional. And then I had so many tech problems because I was learning video. So it was a disaster as far as like how guilty I felt for taking so long. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to wait a little bit before I ask for a Sub-Zero. But from the samples I've heard online, I like it. It's crazy quiet for the money.
And do you feel like it's bright like the mic that you had, or is it a little more even?
I need, I wish I could give an honest answer right now, but it's been too long. Usually I keep all that in my head real well, but I do know it was probably on the brighter side.
Okay.
I don't remember it being like, consistently in all the samples I heard. It's bright on that voice. It's bright on that voice. It's bright on that voice. Like my 640 TS.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember, in fact, I think I was poking around on Recording Hacks, which Matt McGlynn runs. If people don't know, recordinghacks.com is the largest microphone database on the internet, and it's one of my favorite resources. And I ran across your blog post about the Lewitt, and I remembered, oh yeah, we talked about Lewitt years ago. So it's nice to catch up with you on that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about that switch that you were talking about, because I'm encountering this a lot with voice actors that I'm talking to, whether it's on social media or on the phone or whatever. The mic that was originally purchased for auditions from home, whether the actor has a booth or not, people are going, I think for bookings, I need a better mic. What crosses over in your mind? What qualities do you want in a microphone that make you sort of need to tip up? Or what qualities?
That's a great question.
Yeah, because I have a sense of it, but I would really like to hear your opinion about what is it about a microphone that requires you to upgrade from audition status to booking status?
I think some of it overlaps from what we were talking about in the first question, where you might have had a mic that like a $100 USB mic, right? And it sounds pretty good for the money. Like an AT2020 USB, I think is like $150. Or the Apogee mic is a USB mic, and it's phenomenal. I own it. It sounds just as good as a standard non-USB high level mic, with a few exceptions of like the plosives, for example, and that mic are really sensitive. But overall, it sounds amazing. But in general, you're looking to upgrade when you have clients or the demand coming to you when they want to record you live.
Yeah.
When you can't, and even then, if you were doing a lot of workarounds because you had a cheap mic and it sounds like it's really loud when you're recording, but more importantly, your acoustics, that's a bigger topic, but your acoustics have a lot more to do with improving your sound, in my opinion, than the microphone. But on the microphone front, you have to think of like, okay, if they just literally captured this right now, could they use this on air? Could they work with me? And a lot of people don't know, and that's why they need to, consult with people like us just to get some quick insight. But you kind of hit that period where you got to ask yourself, is this going to be broadcast quality? Is it quiet enough? Is my space quiet enough? Is it something I'm proud of to put on my website as a piece of gear? A lot of people aren't proud to say Blue Snowball on their professional voiceover website, right?
Yeah.
You want to impress people as much as you can without lying, right? You don't want to say you have a 416 and you have a USB mic. You could, if you got that USB mic sounding really good somehow, great. But again, I don't encourage lying. But so yeah, it's hard to know when and to put into words. But that's kind of the best way I could describe it. What do you think?
I would think, first of all, noise floor, which you mentioned. Do you get the right? And I think also if you're distorting it easily, so that's the opposite end. If you find that when you're doing loud stuff, you just can't turn it down enough. I think, and so those are basic issues. One of the ways I think about it is financially. If I pay $100, or let's say $90 for a USB mic, there are really three things in that microphone. There's the microphone itself, there's the preamp that's built into it, and there's the AD converter. Now, if you miraculously were able to, as a manufacturer, spend the same amount on all three of those, and nobody would, but just for sake of the argument, then you've got a $30 mic, a $30 mic preamp, that's the amplifier circuit that brings it up to volts from millivolts, and then you've got a $30 AD converter, and I wouldn't want any of those. But when you buy your USB mic, however much it costs, I always think about, okay, what's a third of that? And is that how good of components can be, in a product like that at that price point.
I love that analogy because it reminds me of the multifunction printer, right?
Yeah.
Which I think more people can really conceptualize, where it's like you buy a multifunction printer for $120, which is probably the one I have because it's okay. It does everything okay, right?
Yeah.
It's an inkjet. It runs out of ink quick, right? The scanned images, they're good. I'm not doing any like, I'm not like a Kodak processing plant or something, okay, where I'm like digitizing images. But the point is 120, do the math, you know, divide all those main features into like thirds or fifths, however many features they list by the price. And then that might be the quality you're getting at that price. And just to clarify for people who may not know what an AD converter is, it's essentially, it's the component inside of your audio interface is a more familiar term. And that's like a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. It's essentially, if you don't have a USB mic, it's the part that your XLR mic plugs into. It's like that little red box or a blue box. And it's usually this big for the smaller sizes. And then there's a USB port coming out of that with a USB cable. And once it leaves out going USB, that's where that conversion, that AD analog, and then to digital into USB conversion is happening. That's a piece of hardware which varies in quality between every piece of equipment that exists out there. So again, it's gotten really good over the years, right?
Yeah,
Randy?
absolutely.
Like it's like if you buy a $200 audio interface, not USB mic, but just the audio interface, it's crazy how good it sounds already. Like compared to like a $2,000 audio interface. It's not like back in, 10 plus years ago, you're like, ooh, I can hear those converters suck, right? That line is really blurring at this point for, voiceover quality stuff. We're not doing sound design here, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, just want to get clarification on that. So all those pieces, the AD converter, the preamp, the amplification portion that's amplifying the microphone, and in many of these, the headphone amp, a port that you can plug your headphones in, those are on USB mics now too.
Yep.
It's really great. It's really convenient, but at what cost when you're dropping $80 on it?
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's a really good point. It's a really good point. And I think that, just like as your career moves on as an actor and you're booking gigs where, hopefully you're making more money, getting better gigs as you go, the quality level improves from all of the experience that you have garnered through your path. And I think the same thing is true for the equipment. You don't always get what you pay for, but it's very true in audio, I have found. And that if I buy a cheap piece of gear, it just sounds cheaper. Now, there are diminishing returns there for audio at home. Do we need a $2,000 standalone AD converter? Probably not. You'd sound really good on it.
Yeah. But do you sound $1,800 better, right?
Well, and might that money be spent better on a different microphone? And I would argue early on, yes. I would rather have two microphones and a moderately priced interface than buy a high-end interface for the one microphone that I have. I just, feel like that's not the path. But, I also feel like it's panes of glass, and you really don't see clearly until every single one of them is clean. So when you improve something in your signal path, the difference isn't really all that noticeable until you get all of them at that top tier. So it's a building process, at least in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. You never want to just get like, unless you have the money and you're very fortunate. Yeah. Get like all top end everything right when you start, right? Like that's what just like my studio, it started with like a $200 audio interface because they didn't have any good USB mics when I started in like 2008.
Yep.
It was like a little Mackie interface and then an Audio-Technica AT2020, $100 mic. Yep. Good quality cable for about $40-50, and headphones for about maybe $50, right? Or $100. So at the end of the day, I spent about $400 to $500 to get started, and it sounded really good. Yeah. And I booked work on it. Yeah. And what was the next thing I upgraded? The microphone. That's right. Then after that, the audio interface, and I did a big upgrade there. So yeah, it's all been piecemeal. And then the next thing, my studio monitors, but I do audio production. It's not as important for voice actors, for your speakers. Yep. Which are the monitors. But again, it's like piece by piece by piece. You don't have to get all of this stuff, especially if you don't know how to use it well or have gotten, or are aware of how much better it sounds, to just upgrade everything at once. So
yeah, and I think, you know, as work comes in, plan on reinvesting some of that. That's kind of the way I like to think about it, and the advice I like to give. You know, don't put yourself in debt buying that equipment, but have some goals in mind and save up for stuff. And you know, I bought a lot of microphones used on eBay. I've been burned a few times, but I think that's a great way to expand a mic cabinet is to, you know, somebody else is done with their 421. They're not booking with it anymore, but you're doing a bunch of creature stuff for a video game. A 421 might be awesome.
Cool. Yeah. And sorry about that counterfeit mic I sold you. I'm working on the refund, but you know, banks, they take a while.
Well, your Yelp review is going down, sir.
No.
Just kidding. Let's talk about styles of mics for a little bit, because I think almost everybody is using condenser and probably large diaphragm condenser microphones, but we have dynamic mics out there, moving coil, as well as ribbon mics. And you're one of the first people I talked to who embraced ribbon mics for voiceover work at home. And that's not an easy thing to do. So tell me about that choice.
That's funny. I'm laughing because, as you know, as an audio engineer, your ears change over the years.
Yeah.
And they get better if you're actively just like any skill, if you're actively using that part to analyze audio and determine characteristics, which is a clean sound, or, you know, it gets honed in and that skill becomes refined. I actually need to go listen to that mic review I did with the ribbon mics. I liked it at the time. I wasn't like a novice or anything as far as my engineering skills goes, but I think I might not like it as much today.
Interesting.
As far as a overall, like, yes, this should be your main mic, right?
Yeah.
I think it should be a flavor. And it's actually been really fun with Mara, with the Townsend mic, because again, there's a lot of models that they've picked from, and they have all the classic like RCA ribbon mics and everything that you can play with.
Yeah.
And there's some that actually sound really good. Like but they are very colored, most of them.
Oh yeah.
Right? There's a lot of low end, and it can be muffled, and isn't the noise floor generally louder on ribbons?
Well, you just have to put so much more gain on them. So so the trick is, and this goes back to the interface discussion, is, you know, somebody wants to use even a moving coil mic like an SM7 does not have a really high output, so you have to put a lot of gain on it. And if that gain is not clean, then you will get a lot of noise. And so getting clean gain usually means a better quality mic preamp, or adding something like a cloud lifter to sort of help. It's basically adding a preamp is the way I like to think of a cloud lifter.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and ribbons can be relatively quiet. The original PB90, which was a precursor to the 44, had such a weak transformer. We had one where I used to work, and we couldn't use it because the noise was just terrible.
That sucks.
Now it sounds like
you're such using, a cool mic like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, and it's got a nice, I mean, I probably should have modded it, but we already had a 44, so what was the point? So it sounds like mostly the flavor that you like in terms of style and construction is condenser. Do you use ribbons, or do you use moving coil mics as part of your regular practice, and why?
Okay, so overall, large diaphragm condenser has been my main go-to for many years. And the reason why is, for me, and a lot of voice actors, but I tend to work in a lot of genres. I do video games, I do anime, I do animation, which is cartoons and stuff. I do commercials, you know, promo, voice matching, which is, it has to sound really clean and match how it sounds like in the movie trailer. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a wide range, and what I need if I'm working as fast as possible is for a mic to be as versatile as possible. And what I mean by that is that it can handle anything from a really quiet, intimate read, and where I might get up on the mic and it sounds nice, or if I'm getting really loud, like, and I'm getting really far back, but I need to be able to scream into the mic without it exploding and sounding terrible.
Yeah.
Maybe like back to back to back, because a lot of my auditions, I'm just doing a commercial talking at this level. And then the next read, like, we have a lot of commercials right now for COVID-19, and they're really quiet. And I book a lot of work doing, and I have to crank the gain on that, right?
Yep.
So that's why a large diaphragm, they tend to have a quieter noise floor than moving coil or dynamic mics.
Yep.
And I haven't played enough with dynamic mics, I have to admit, for voiceover work, because I've been fortunate enough to have a well-treated acoustic environment for many years. That's where dynamics, the stage mics, to make it more simple for people. I don't know, wish I had one sitting around. I have a SM57 in the back there, but I haven't used them much. But I've been surprised at how good they sound.
Oh yeah,
and for one, the money, and two, for having like hardly any acoustic treatment in some people's rooms. But if you want to again work in these other genres and you want it to be a bit more of a fuller sound, and you want to be able to do extra quiet reads, which are becoming, especially like audiobooks, and a dynamic stage mic, in my opinion, is going to not work so well because of the inherent noise, or your preamp, right, is not going to be able to apply enough gain, or when you do, it's going to be pretty loud when you crank it up. Large diaphragm condensers or shotguns tend to not have those issues, and that's what I prefer. So
yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot, because before we got started, you said, what mic are you using? So let's just start with category. Am I using a large diaphragm condenser, a small diaphragm condenser, a moving coil, or ribbon? What do you think I'm talking to you on right now?
Can you do like a sweep test? Can you give me one hint where you go, whoa? Can you give me that hint or no?
That'll narrow it down for you, won't it? Whoa, whoa.
I just wanted to see you float around like a balloon. Okay, that was I'm going to go with a large diaphragm condenser.
That's a great guess. It is a brighter microphone than you would suspect in this category, but it is a dynamic. So now you're narrowed down to either moving coil or ribbon. Now I have a lot of compression on it.
Ribbon.
And that's right.
Yeah, okay, I hear too much. You know what's funny? As I was actually going to guess ribbon, but I'm like, he's probably not using a ribbon on a Zoom call. But of course you are, because you're a total mic nerd. I legit was thinking maybe ribbon, because I feel like I could hear, it doesn't sound terribly focused, which, the ribbons pick up the back of the mic and the front. That's also a risk you take if your room doesn't sound great. I'm not saying yours doesn't sound great. I'm just saying like for voice actors, right? So that's funny. My gut was telling me ribbon, but I was like, he's not using a ribbon on this.
Yeah, that would be too daring.
But I own up to my guess.
So, and here's the reason why. Here's the reason why for Zoom calls, because the ribbon picks up on the front and the back of the microphone, right? But on the top, the bottom, and the sides, it doesn't. So I can put it right between my two speakers, above my monitor, and I've got panels on the back wall behind my speakers. So it's just going back there to absorption.
So smart.
And what I found is that I get pretty good, even if I have my big speakers on. I haven't done a whole lot of experimenting with it, but the idea is to be able to listen to someone talk to me like we're doing now without having headphones on, and just pick up my voice. I do feel like I'm a little off axis because I have a monitor. The monitor I'm looking at you on right now, there's one more above that where I sort of do all my Pro Tools work. And I had to get above that, which, it gets it out of the shot, but it's a little bit off. At any rate,
I didn't care. I'm like, just put this damn mic in my face for my shot. It's got cat fur on it and everything. Whatever.
Hey, man, if it sounds good.
It's how it sounds.
It is
good.
Looks, that's right. Yeah. Well, I would agree with you, though, and I think especially for someone who's really just like, what's the one mic that I'm going to use to book jobs on right now? I need to get off my USB mic. What should I get? A ribbon mic would not be my first suggestion, but I do think if you're building out, you want to get some color. You're trying to do some piece that's, jazzy or needs to sound, I don't want to use the word antique, but vintage.
Yeah, I think buttery, some sauce.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's fun to pull out stuff like that on auditions because you might really stand out in the audition among the others. You might stand out too much and they go, well, that's not going to fit with the other actors in my project. So that's the risk. Yeah. And I think that's another answer to the question we were asking earlier, which is a lot of game audio is recorded on 416s and 87s. And if you're recording on something that's not anywhere close to those kinds of sounds, I would say the 416 is a little bit more of a cinematic sound, and the 87 is a little bit more of a classic 80s and 90s animation sound.
Yeah.
But they're both, really good workhorse mics. They do a lot of different things well. If you're recording on a cheap USB mic that has a really bad pickup pattern on the back side, you're not going to sound like the actor that fits in with all the other folks that have been cast. And that's another reason to sort of spring a little bit more money for your microphone for booking gigs. And like you say, if you can get the noise floor up and get a tighter pattern, get a response that sounds like, for whatever reason, the 87 just sounds like animation. I think everybody had them, and so that became sort of like NS10s were the speakers in the 80s. 87s became the microphone.
Absolutely.
Let's talk for just a second about shotgun microphones. Do you find that you prefer shotgun microphones for home recording as opposed to on-set, film recording? And if so, why?
As opposed to on-set film recording?
Well, that's what they were designed for, right? They were designed to hang up out of the shot and not be seen, and they're designed to work at long distances, so you can have a medium and wide shot and still not have the mic in the shot. So that's what they're supposed to do. But we're using them in voiceover studios up a lot closer than they were designed for. And so, but Jimi Hendrix didn't use the Les Paul the way it was designed for either, right? So that doesn't mean we can't reinvent, but I'm just curious how you find shotguns at home in your setup.
Overall, I like them. They're another flavor, and they can be your full-blown workhorse mic.
Yeah.
I know talent here in town who have a great home studio setup, who do a lot of character work, which is my argument for a large diaphragm to have that.
Yeah.
And they do everything on a 416, and they book work, and then they go in and record on a U87 most of the time. So it's kind of the irony. So it's not like it's hindering them, but it's all that matters is, does it sound good? Is it high quality? Right. And the 416, I mean, right now I have up, you can't quite see in frame, but it's the TLM 103 and the 416 are up in my booth.
Nice.
And I have a radial gold digger, which is, I inherited it from Mara because she doesn't need it anymore.
Yeah.
But it's for those who don't know, you can hook multiple mics up to it, and you can press a button to instantly switch between those mics. They're just like ready to go.
So cool.
And it's a nice mute button too if you're not using one of the channels. But anyways, so a cough or a fart button, you know how it goes. Voice actors, you don't want them to hear everything.
Hey, you're alone in the booth, man. Do what you got to do.
Yeah. Except when they're recording you live.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But
well, that's what the mute button's for, again.
Exactly. But I really like the shotguns I like it for almost everything except character work, but I do a little bit of character work on it. But most of the time I use it a lot on my commercial work or promos, or even corporate work where it's just like a 5-minute narration video or training. And the reasons why is because it's a lot more focused. If it's during rush hour, it can kind of get loud. I live on a street corner, and it can kind of get loud from cars. Not so much lately, but
right.
But from cars driving around, right? And the shotgun mics, they have a tighter pickup pattern, so they pick up sound, trying to more focus like that, as opposed to a large diaphragm, which is picking up more information.
Yeah.
Coming at you. So that means it's more susceptible to how crappy your room may sound.
Yeah.
So that's what I like the shotguns for. It's a more focused sound. It's a bit hyped to a degree.
Yep.
But it works really good, and they use it in all the studios I go to for anything pretty much other than character work. It's always like all my commercials I go in for, it's a 416. But yeah, again, the shotgun's a flavor. And if you're not doing a lot of character work and whatnot, I think a shotgun is actually probably a better bet for a lot of voice talent if they're really doing a ton of work from their home studio, because most people don't have the luxury of a booth that blocks a lot of noise. So they want, or a lot of acoustic treatment in their room. So there's a little bit more echo than they would like. They can't afford to get all the treatment or build all this drywall and block all the noise.
Right.
A shotgun can really help you with that. And there's some really good affordable ones. Rode has a whole range of price range of shotguns. But my favorite, and Randy, tell me if you tried it, is the Audio-Technica AT875R.
I have not.
I believe it's a small diaphragm. It's a pencil. It's not like this short, but it's about that long.
But it has the interference tube with the rifling on it, with the little ports.
From my understanding, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like $170.
Yeah.
And it has kind of already a low-end scoop out, like a built-in high-pass filter, if you will.
Yep.
And it's super neutral. I think the noise floor isn't the best, but I think it's more than acceptable for professional work.
Well, and for that price.
So good. I know.
Yeah.
I just want to get one, honestly, for just kind of random video work I do. Instead of having one that's so long like this, right?
Yeah. Well,
again, that's my long ass answer to say that I feel like shotguns in general, if you're just doing corporate narration, e-learning, training, phone systems, maybe even audiobooks, the shotgun mics, whether it's a 416 or a more affordable option, they can really be a good workhorse mic and flatter your room more than make it sound worse. So what do you think?
Well, I wanted to just add to that. I think that certainly you have mastered and even demonstrated a little bit in our call here, microphone technique. And I feel like making the connection between what you're hearing and where you are relative to the microphone is all the more important with a shotgun mic. And some people are really good with mic technique. Obviously you are. We've just seen that earlier when you were, getting loud and backing up for it. And when you were, getting in closer for the intimate read. What I find is as you sort of move left to right on the capsule, when you get off axis, it sounds different really quickly. And it's not a good different.
Correct.
And so for people who like to move around, and I know a lot of voice actors, like you say, for character work, you want to put some kinetics in it. Boy, you really got to just gyroscope your head on a 416 or the NTG3 or any of those. So if the goal, a lot of times what I'm trying to do with actors is help them let the technology serve them rather than they have to serve the technology. And I feel like a really tight pickup pattern, if you work back from it, it should be okay. But if you're getting in close and doing intimate work on it, sometimes you're better off with a different mic than a shotgun just because of that. The comb filtering that happens as you get just even an inch off of that thing when you're close to it.
It's really noticeable.
Yeah.
And that was something I totally had in my mind that I forgot, but you nailed it with, if you're doing anything that, hey, I'm just doing a commercial, I'm just kind of staying still and I don't really need to, right? Like, but if you're doing like a battle fight and you're like, get down, grenade, notice how like I at least got to do this. Yeah. And if you do that, you're going to hear that almost, unless if you keep the shotgun mic back further, but the further back it goes, the more of the room you hear. Right. And that doesn't sound pleasing. Yeah. So it's that's why I say, like, if you're just doing just general voiceover work, and I don't mean that like in a boring way. I just mean it's overall your projection level is pretty similar. You barely ever have to touch your gain for most. You know who I'm talking about? People
narration.
Just general narration. Yeah. And you're not bouncing all over the place. Shotguns are a great bet, but for anyone doing character work or who just like to move in general, shotguns are much less forgiving. So it's a great point.
Yeah, I also think just like any mic, shotgun as a style, they tend to have, as you say about the AT, the 416 also has a slope. And so it's a little bit thinner. And that doesn't always match everyone's voice. Old Don LaFontaine made a career off of 416s, and he had a big, huge, chesty voice, had a barrel chest kind of delivery, but the 416 sort of helped him cut through rather than be muddy. So he used it to his advantage. He worked it close to get it actually distorting a little bit on top, just so that it had a really nice edge to it, and he could, in a world, over the explosions and, John Williams music or whoever it was. And
let's go with John Williams. He's the best.
Right, because that's got the horns in it. So like he made a career out of using the sizzle in that microphone. But just like anything, because I think shotguns have a profile to them, not all of them. The Neumann actually is a very big full sound, but it's not as directional in the bass. So in order to get that tight pickup, they tend to make the cheaper shotguns thin. And if you're going for something that's warm, it's not going to come across as well. And as you sort of change your voice in developing characters and textures, the high stuff comes through great. Air, gravel, texture, all of that stuff you can hear on a 416 or other shotgun mic typically that has that brighter profile, but you're never going to get the warmth out of it the way that you can a large diaphragm condenser. So some of it is, what are you booking and how do you sound on that mic? And this is why I tell people, when you buy a microphone, make sure you have a generous return policy, because if it turns out the way your voice sounds is not flattering your voice, you need to be able to return that and get something different.
I know, and that is the biggest challenge and the hardest thing that voice actors face. I empathize. I mean, I've gone through it myself, but I have a good foundation of microphones at this point in my career. I've been doing this for a long time. But for those who are trying to get, especially their first mic, it's just like, it's so anxiety inducing to where you just like, you just want to go with what everyone else does, but that what everyone else is buying may not be the best fit for your voice, and more importantly, in your environment. Because so many people's rooms sound, it's crazy how different a room can sound. It's, I mean, you know it. Like, yeah. That's why these studios that you engineer at cost million, I don't know how much, I have no idea, millions of dollars just to get the
yeah. And honestly, doing it right, this may surprise people, but doing it right, when you really build out a studio and it's a big space, not a whisper room, but a big space,
yeah.
The most expensive thing by far is not the construction, it's not the acoustic treatment, it's not sealing off all of the little spots, it's the air conditioning. Getting the air conditioning so it's quiet is the biggest ticket item on construction. And, you know, if your air conditioner's going off while you're recording, I mean, a lot of times we kid about the little whisper booths being sweat boxes, but, you know, if you don't have the Zoom call on, nobody's there, sweat away because it's quieter for sure.
I mean, I have the AC on right now, which I don't have any noise canceling turned on from Zoom, so you'll hear it in the recordings, you know, whoever. But this is it's a conversation. But yeah, this would right now, while I have a high quality mic going into a high quality preamp, I'm in a room that's treated very well acoustically. If no cars were driving by, you would think I'd be able to cut some voice over here, but I'd have to go turn off that AC, and then I'd have to turn off the ceiling fan. I hear a little bit of that. And there might be a fan kicking on from my video card, you know, my graphics card that I hear behind my desk. So all of that can axe me as far as being at a professional sounding level, even though I have a lot of stuff working for me.
Yeah.
So that's why I have that thick triple wall studio bricks back there, because I can go in there right now and close the door and it's dead silent, you know. So, but it's an investment.
Yep, that's right. And like I said, I don't think everybody should try to do it all at once. I mean, certainly you have ramp ups. Like a lot of people right now are buying a whole bunch of stuff because they want to, you know, and guys like you and me can offer our experience and advice in that. And maybe I'd like to close there actually, Jordan, and say, what are you doing these days in terms of, you know, what you and I want to do for the community and on social media, but also how has your work changed because of quarantine?
No, totally. But more importantly, massive props to you, because you have like one of the longest running blogs with amazing advice on it for recording. I mean, like everything you've been putting out on Twitter and on your blog for like what? How long has your blog been around? Like 15 years?
No, I want to say 8, but I'm not sure.
I feel like it's longer than that, because it's just like every time I go on there, I'm like, dude, he's still posting stuff. This is amazing. And nothing's redundant or selly. It's just like, you just want to help. And that should be admired. So thank you, Randy.
Very kind of you to say.
Everyone speaks very highly of you too. So it's, it's so nice to if we have knowledge that can help people who are really scared right now. That's, you know, just doing the Zoom call. I'm super grateful. I'm honored that you would even speak to me about this. So thank you.
Well, like I said, you're one of the first people I knew who was committed to using microphones at home years ago. And you have such a deep experience and love for the way that things sound. And that's, like I said, I don't want to diss everybody else, but you know, the way that you put together what you're hearing with your equipment, and then on top of that, being, you know, a fantastic actor and interpreter of copy and having one of my favorite sounding voices, you know, I mean, I remember like talking to you in person and I'm like, man, he sounds like he's on an 87 and he's just in front of me. Holy crap.
Well, I found out very quickly that it doesn't, that didn't get me very far as making money.
Well,
they're like, oh, you have to act. Shit. So,
well, that helps.
Yeah, no, it helps. So lots of years of training later, eventually I made a buck or two. So, but thank you.
Yeah. So have you got anything coming up? Are you planning any more interviews or webinars or anything like that?
I have a lot of ideas. I just did like a free like 2-hour webinar where the title was, "Does your home studio sound like shit?" And it's a catchy title, and I wasn't trying to be rude about it, but I wanted people to really consider things that maybe they haven't considered about their home studio, because especially living in LA, I've only been here 3 years, but you mentioned that like I've always had microphones and care for it and whatnot. But you know what that comes from, dude? I built my VO career in Colorado.
Yeah.
so my ultimate goal was I want to pay all my bills with just voiceover. I can't rely on just going into studios to book. I need to use the internet outside of Colorado, and I need to have a pro sounding setup because that's what's expected when people who don't just book through a talent agent, they just book a talent directly. They expect them to have a home studio that sounds good.
Yeah.
So it was a requirement to meet my goal of paying the bills with just voiceover. So I was very fortunate that I was forced to do that. And I, of course, brought that with me moving here to LA a few years ago. And it's been very shocking to see how many local talent, whether they're in New York, Chicago, or LA, who don't have really any home setup or just a little something just to get by. And I totally get it because they've had they've been very fortunate to be able to just pull out their iPhone and just record their auditions on it. And their agents are like, that's fine. Because when you book, you're going into a studio.
Right.
Who knew that this pandemic thing was going to happen? Right. But I could say, well, you could have prepared for it. Something like this could happen, but who could guess? So I really empathize with those who are scrambling, and just anything I can do and that you can do to give some sort of advice to not make it too confusing, too scary. At the end of the day, audio is pretty basic. So got a little off topic there.
Well, that's okay.
But the question was, what are we doing? It's I did the webinar to help. I'm doing more audio consulting directly with talent, just because home studios for voiceover is my niche.
Yeah.
Right. And at the end of the day, what I'm seeing is people with established home studios with Source Connect, and they know how to engineer it. They're flourishing right now because, and the people who don't have that setup, they literally are getting zero opportunities to work from at least their agents. Right.
Yeah.
And it's, so you got to do what you got to do. But luckily, hopefully some advice we gave you here, some advice on my webinar, all the advice on Randy's amazing blog.
Thank you.
Something can get you somewhere to get you one more step forward to having a pro level enough studio to start booking more work and just be available to audition through your clients from home. So we really want to help you with that, guys.
Yeah. And I think, your point about, there's a lot of information on the internet, maybe too much, and you can read, and sometimes you just need somebody to look you in the face and go, no, those are not the headphones you want, or that microphone might be great for that guy, but I think for your voice, right? And so I do think there's a critical role for people, whether you want to think of it as mentoring, consulting, tutoring. Sometimes I sort of read till I'm blue in the face, and I just need to, like this, have a conversation with someone. So I'm glad that you're out there. You can relate to voice actors because you are one. And so I hope people will get a hold of you. You're on Twitter, yeah?
Yeah, I'm on most stuff. Twitter, I'm Jordan at Jordan Ren.
Okay.
R-E-Y-N. So it's partially my last name.
Yeah.
And then if you just Google Jordan Reynolds, just go to jordanreynolds.com, all my social medias links are on there just to make it easy. Yeah.
So
but
that's
Instagram,
how people,
I'm probably most active on.
Okay,
Twitter
good to
and Instagram.
know. We'll see you on the Insta. And if people want to get a hold of you, then go to your website, Jordan Reynolds. That's great.
Correct. Yeah. And since this is audio related, I got a new site put up just for audio. It's jordanaudio.ninja. So,
oh, nice. Audio Ninja.
So for all audio stuff, Jordan, for consulting or webinar updates and stuff like that, go ahead and head to that site. And be sure to hit up Randy's blog.
All right, man. Great to talk with you. Thanks so much.
You too, man. All right. Good luck, everyone.